Wow, that was really something. That was wow, that seemed legit. Way to kick
I
off the year.
am, if nothing but a man of my word. I made a promise on this show that I would have intro music before the season started. Listen, I'm not saying that's going to be the intro the entire time. I'm not saying that we won't change it, but the intro's back. The same song. It's still 1621 from the boys. Shout out to the boys, Wave, Nick Skrull, Signar, friends and collaborators, Instrumental Volume 1. Check those guys out. The music is awesome. But yeah, we got intro music. I'm a man of my word. Oh, it's game week, Brad. I'm jacked up. It's good to be here.
I'm fired up. Do you think we can get like? Do we have access to like highlights? Maybe get that on the new intro. I guess it would be fitting to just add them as we go for this year, right? I don't know. We don't need old highlights from last year. It's a new year. It's 2025. It's already kicked off. Week 0 last week. However, this is the official week 1. Kickoff starting Thursday. We got South Florida Boise State kicking things off for us as we have a jam-packed week, including our Hoosiers taking on Old Dominion. We'll preview that game later.
It is a jam-packed week. We got lots of smoke to get to, Brad. We will get to a little bit of the slate of the notable games. Obviously, the bulk of the show is going to be built around Indiana and Old Dominion, but of course, plenty going on in the world of Indiana football like there is every week. We'll start here, Brad. About 3 weeks ago, we threw around a couple different names for the naming rights of the field. Merchants Bank was not one of them, but shout out to those guys for dropping the bag. $50 million over 20 years was the contract, and it's Merchants Bank Field at Memorial Stadium. The boys are going to be taking the ball to the bank.
20-year deal.
Were you surprised?
Wow. I didn't know about that number. Yeah, I thought it was going to be like 10 or something. 20 is a lot. And I feel like, being early, obviously we're setting the market, but maybe with the deal that long, just thinking like market could change. We'll see. We're going to be locked in that deal for a while. So I'm sure there's other ways to get revenue in, but yeah, I'm great. I'm happy about it.
Penn State's deal was very similar. It was over 15 years, I believe. So they got a little bit more. But it was pretty comparable to the rest of the market. I do understand the hesitation in looking at a deal over 20 years because the market obviously is going to shift. But there are other things around the stadium they could name. There are other renovations that are going to happen. There's going to be a whole suite area and press box, and they're talking about ripping up the entire stadium and whether or not they're going to do that in one go or do that in multiple different smaller projects. That's kind of the conversation right now. So no shortage of area to make money. I think this did come out of left field, but at the same time, like the report was from Scott Dolson himself, was that he ran out onto Kirkwood and started to do a dance in front of a bunch of people, and it didn't even matter who was around. Yeah, so he was thrilled about it.
Fun.
And
I feel like that's a good sign.
No, that is definitely when the guy brokering the deal is pumped about it. Yeah, I'm gonna be pumped about it too. And the other thing that came out of that was nobody's shying away from the goal. The goal is to eventually, if not this year, bring a national championship to Indiana. And that's something that Pam Whitten literally said at her media appearance announcing Merchants Bank Field as the sponsor. So everybody's head is pointing in the right direction. And it's funny as Indiana football fans, and we'll get into a lot of the BS that's been thrown around this week and for the last couple of weeks, to hear that as the goal of the university when we were in school, it was survive and maybe get to a bowl game, is like, this is a completely different world. And Fat Boy's right. We are alive. Let's fucking go. Game week.
You also said it came out of left field. Like we didn't have a whole bit where we try to hypothesize, throw around hypotheticals about what the field could be.
I said Merchants Bank Field being the sponsor came out of left field. Naming the field did not. It was something that we have been speculating about for 2 months.
Okay. Just want to make sure we're clear there.
The fellas are racking up preseason awards. Mendoza has been on a bunch of them. I think Bray Lynch was on one of them. The one that stood out to me today, though, was Byron Baldwin Jr., and I'll loop in this with it, too. Today is August 26th, and I'll stack correct myself from last week. Last week, I saw a Michael Nizolik, and I got corrected on that, too. Nizolik tweet talking about an addition to Lewis Moore's trial that's happening tomorrow. I interpreted that to be that was happening last week. It wasn't. So all of this stuff is happening tomorrow. So whether or not Lewis Moore is going to be ruled eligible for the 2025 season, we'll have a definitive answer tomorrow. Signetti was asked about it during his press conference this week, whether or not they've had a plan in place for it. And he said, obviously they have a plan in place for it. So, but he didn't.
Byron Baldwin, I'm pretty sure.
And it is Byron Baldwin. And he was named to the Sean Alexander, freshman to watch list, which is very, very exciting.
Ooh. Remember when Sean Alexander was the cover of Madden and then kind of fell off the face of the earth? Yeah.
I think that was 07, right?
Yeah. He won MVP and then they went to the Super Bowl, lost to the Steelers, and then I feel
Didn't he have 25 touchdowns or something crazy like that? I don't know. It's fantasy football season. Sean Alexander's hitting home. I think that was the first or second year I started playing.
Really? That's early. I didn't start playing until much later. Much later.
I started playing fantasy football probably second or third grade.
Yeah. Now I would give my uncles advice, back in that day. They would ask me, they'd refer to me. I was almost a fantasy consultant. Didn't really know what the game was, but they asked me who I liked, and I would think they would take it to heart,
I'm a Dwayne Bowe truther, Brad. That's how far back I go.
Yeah. He was big time back then. Everyone loved Dwayne Bowe. He was he's a top 10 guy at one point.
People somewhere over the Dwayne Bowe,
these days. It's crazy.
The big news, the big non-Indiana news last week was the SEC moving to 9 conference games officially, and also the kicker being they added the +1 rule, meaning you have to schedule 1 Power 4. Obviously, Indiana Twitter ran rampant with that because after Signetti's comments and Signetti grave dance all over the SEC for their scheduling, they come out and they officially changed the format of their league, something they've been holding on to for a really long time. And honestly, the main reason why the Big Ten took away their +1 rule is because the SEC wasn't playing 9 conference games. And now you have a little bit more balancing back in college football. So what was your initial takeaway when you saw going back to 9 conference games?
Initial takeaway
going to 9 conference games. Sorry.
Initial takeaway was Signetti absolutely bullying the SEC into getting this done. That was as clear as day. It was funny how kind of ESPN covered it, where they were trying to throw it back at Indiana, look at us now. Indiana can't do their cupcake schedule anymore. It's no longer SEC standard, and which is true. And I think and everyone was still responding Signetti totally won and all that. So I think, the national fan base had our back here, which was awesome to see. And then moving forward, obviously what this means for Indiana is that they're probably going to adopt a very similar type of structure in the Big Ten moving forward. So, those 3 cupcakes at the beginning of the year is probably not going to last very long. And it'll be interesting to see who they replace for next year. Obviously the easy probably move would be getting Kentucky on the schedule next year. I think that'd be awesome if we can get that done and get that rivalry going. And then I've said this before, how I would want it is that we're basically just playing Kentucky or Notre Dame on a given year. And I think that would be great for just the branding of Indiana football and what it's all about, and kind of those key rivalries that I think people want to see from IU, just trying to stay as traditionalist as possible in a very non-traditional college football landscape we find ourselves in.
Yeah, I think there's a reason that the Indiana schedule graphics cut off in 2029, and it the people who are going to miss out the most on the eventual schedule changes are the people who are grifting off of Indiana's schedule in the first place. So ultimately, it'll be good for college football, and we'll see what happens moving forward. But it is kind of interesting, to your point, that you saw a lot of people try and throw this back into Indiana's face when the major change and the meeting to have that change happened after Signetti made the comments about the league. And so saying one didn't directly affect the other without definitive proof, you know what I mean? It's there is no way to possibly say
the absence of evidence isn't the evidence of absence, as they say.
Exactly. That is tried and true PR win for Indiana. And also something that we predicted going into the offseason and going into the summer was that the intensity of the grifting was going to keep Indiana's name relevant from the time they lost in the college football playoff through literally we're in game week right now. And it feels like every single week there was a story or two about what Indiana's schedule looked like. could they do this and whatnot, this and that and the other. We've been talking about Indiana football for 8 months. They haven't taken a snap.
Longer than that. We've been doing this pod for over a year now.
No, but I'm saying like they haven't taken a snap since December 24th or December 23rd or whenever that game, or the 12th or whatever. You know, when was that game? I don't even remember when that game was. Early December,
16th.
So
I think
the fact that we've been able to stay this relevant as a football program, it again speaks volumes to where we've come from, and the fact that Indiana belongs in this conversation. Hats off to Signetti because he's the reason why we're here. Sig's inside, baby. Let's go. Let's go, Blake.
There we go, B-Phil. Welcome.
Brad, did you see the top 5 highest paid quarterbacks in the Big Ten list?
Say that again. Sorry.
Did you see the top 5 quarterbacks in the Big Ten list?
In the Big Ten list from who?
From Big Ten Huddle.
See a lot of lists. And no, I don't. I'm surprised. I don't remember it off the top of my head. They've been dropping a lot of lists this year, so it's been really hard to keep up and figure out which list is list. I feel like, the offseason is just full of lists, and you see a bunch of them, and you kind of digest them. You don't know who's who, and you kind of just get, you're kind of drowning in lists. And I'm so glad there's actual football this year because football is more than just a list.
Now, Fat Boy says Sig got to steal. Mendoza's better than 4 of them at least. No, I'll do you one up. I think he's better than all 5. And the list was Dylan Raiola and Drew Aller making $3+ million. Underwood's making 3. Sainz making 1.5. And Malava's making 1.2. And Altmaier's making 1. So
the NIL list. You didn't make that clear. Those NIL lists. Yeah, no, it's crazy. It feels like we're getting a bargain.
I said the highest paid quarterbacks. How could that? How I couldn't have made it more clear.
I'm sorry. I'm off. I'm off today, which is bad. Not good.
The guy wears red for game week, and he can't get.
Yeah, well, it feels like Indiana to the point of the list. Anyways, we can move past.
Yeah,
my distractions.
The point being, Fernando Mendoza, if not based on play and merit alone, should be somewhere on this list, and he's not. And so the fact that is the case, if this is fact, is insane, and Signetti deserves a raise.
Yeah, no, I think the funniest thing I saw was someone just pointing out the fact that Raiola made $3 million to lose 56-7 last year to Indiana. So I think that was just the funniest thing I saw about it. But yeah, I mean, that's just the reality of football being played. It's hard for me to imagine he's not making more than that. I feel like maybe they don't have the accurate number. Like all these numbers are kind of hearsay. I don't know how official they are. There's a chance Mendoza's making a bunch more than what they actually think he's making. So, yeah, it's interesting to see, but I think we're getting an absolute bargain just based on the numbers that we saw on that graphic.
I agree. We got a Tyreek Tucker mic'd up video this week.
That was awesome.
Which was awesome.
Such a nose tackle, that guy.
He's a dog, man. He's an absolute dog, and he's one of the reasons why it's like people say that one of the question marks on this Indiana team is the defensive tackle or the defensive line. It's like we must be watching 2 different position groups then, because I'm not seeing the same thing.
Yeah, no, we were hearing in spring that was actually one of the strengths of the team at that point. Like they were way ahead of schedule, so hopefully the rest of the team is able to catch up. If that's the case, and maybe that is one of the bigger question marks because we are replacing an NFL talent there. And as officially today, there's now 3 guys that are now in the NFL that we have to replace now. And yeah, it'll be interesting to kind of look forward. Did we find 3 more NFL guys kind of match the production talent that we have on this team as opposed to last year? I think is a big part of it, but kind of went on a tangent. But yeah, Tyreek Tucker, we're expecting huge strides from him this year. He still has the starting nose, and obviously, he's going to be splitting carries with Ratcliffe and Wheeler and Landino, like we've been saying all off season. So, yeah. Did I say carries instead of snaps there?
Yeah, you alluded to a bunch of different things. One of them there was that there was another NFL Hoosier, and shout out to Miles Price, who made the Vikings roster, came out today. There was an awesome clip. I think I don't know which accounts are linked up where on which browsers, but of Miles Price answering why punt return is his favorite position, talking about just getting the ball in his hands and like having the chance to make a play. And it's just, you listen to that guy speak about football, and how do you not want him on your football team? So hopefully some of the other guys, the guys that were like last roster cuts. Get Kuma Snickers, please.
No, honestly, it's kind of what I need right now.
Hopefully those guys who are kind of
Low
last
blood
roster
sugar,
cuts
too heavy of a workout today.
Are able to find homes and are able to make an impact because we know they're good football players. But shout out to Miles Price for battling his ass off, making a roster. We love to see that from the boy. Love to see it.
Yeah. Congrats to Miles. I mean, we always suspected that maybe either a Keyshawn Williams or a Miles Price could make it as an undrafted rookie. If not, one of them, not both, because we saw them as pretty like equal. I heard Key's probably gonna he's gonna end up on a practice squad, and we'll probably see him on a roster at some point this year, just based on what injuries do. He made a very good impression with NFL front offices this preseason, and I think of any of the cuts that happen, he's probably the most likely to kind of stick around in the league for a little bit and hopefully contribute as another punt returner in the league.
Well, it's also intriguing for Miles Price because you look at how Minnesota develops receivers, how quickly they kind of, I don't want to say cycle through receivers, but their guys end up in and out of the lineup. I'm not ruling out that guy's going to play his way into like legit touches. Like you look at how infectious he is about football and how much he loves the game. And the guy's going to work hard and what he's like when he gets the ball in his hands. And so I'm just excited that kid's able to like put himself in a position to like be on an NFL roster. Like it's big time.
Yeah. Dreams do come true. Hard work pays off. Congrats to
100%.
Miles. It's a very, I think, we'd like to take credit of, the Signetti NFL pipeline and try to use that as a recruiting tool, which will always be, obviously leveraged by the school moving forward. And just another example of Miles Price is probably a great store to use for recruits. But I think with that, I think people forget with all that kind of credit being taken by the schools, where making an NFL roster really comes down to that one person. And Miles Price putting in the work and, doing the things he needed to do this offseason to end up getting that roster spot and being able to, prepare and recover throughout camp and get that job is huge. And congratulations to Miles, because he deserves the individual credit there, because it is an individual accomplishment. It is not an 100%. Accomplishment of Curt Cignetti or Indiana or anyone, more so than it is Miles Price being the man.
Earn, not given. Not given. Salute to Price. Salute. What was I gonna say? We got a Wheeler and Mikowski pressers this week. Nothing that jumped out specifically about either one, but I would just say the maturity and the perspective both of them have about football, about their situation. Really, really impressive. Two impressive individuals. Two guys that boring is the wrong word, but it's the perfect word, and it's exactly what you want to hear. When it's just like, if you enjoy football talk and you enjoy press conferences, which like you guys know I do, I'll run through word for word what they say. I really enjoyed listening to those guys speak, but there was no like Signetti-esque quotes from either of them, which is why I didn't write any of those down. But the maturity and the perspective that those two specifically have about the game and what they're bringing to that room, I'm really excited for the impact they have. And we'll get into a little bit of where Mikowski and kind of what the offensive line is going to look like in a little bit. But it was interesting to hear him talk about playing right tackle and how foreign it was compared to being on the left side of the offensive line for his entire life.
Yeah, it's inverse movements for him, so it takes a little bit of adjustment. And we've said that's kind of where Benson comes in, because Benson has played all four positions at some point in his career, so which might be working against him in some capacity, not being able to be, jack of all trades, master of none type deal for a guy like Khalil Benson when it comes to O-line. But no, knowing the movement still at left tackle, it just takes repetition, and I'm sure he'll be able to pull it off. And are we going to talk a little bit O-line construction right now, just based on kind of the injuries we have, or are we going to say that for the game preview?
Hold it for the game preview. I want to there's a little bit of smoke. I just want to get through the smoke, and then we'll talk about the game.
Okay.
Class of 2026. I don't know if you're able to catch any of the stats, Brad, but they went crazy this weekend. Jaden Williams had like 17 tackles, which is absolutely absurd.
Huh. Okay.
Cash Herrera, 3 passing touchdowns, 3 rushing touchdowns, like 350 plus all-purpose yards. He went crazy. Laron Dews returned a punt. He went nuts. Jacob Savage. Jacob Savage scored twice, had like 7-8 tackles. I saw Cam McHaney get in on the action, smash somebody. Like, and those are just the guys in highlights. I saw Kent Mondu had a sick game. Parker Elmore, oh my God, Parker Elmore made one of the sickest catches over some poor dude I've ever seen. He just went way up and mossed the kid. The kid had no business being on the field.
Yeah, we're getting
So
some
that was
dogs.
really exciting.
More
And so
dogs on the team.
If you're watching the production in the class of 2026 specifically, it's hard because these guys aren't going to impact the team until next year at the earliest. But to watch what a kid like that looks like at their quote unquote like full powers playing against their peers, and imagine what that can look like when they're playing against their peers and Kurt Cignetti in Indiana's system. It gets really exciting when you look at the production of some of these guys. Now, obviously, it's high school. You can't get too caught up in that because the game changes drastically, but you want to look and see the guys who committed to your school playing well and dominating and doing the things that they're doing. And so shout out to those guys specifically who I saw, but also I'm sure the rest of the class was dominating as well because they just bring in dogs. That's what these guys do.
Yeah, competition level varies throughout the class, but for the most part, the class is made up of guys playing pretty high-level high school football. Cash Herrera is probably one of those exceptions. He's playing in San Diego and not, one of the smaller Catholic leagues over there. And but yeah, for him to still put up 6 touchdowns and 350 all-purpose yards, doesn't matter who you're playing. That's good stuff. That's something you want to see. And yeah, hopefully he keeps it going.
Where am I going next? I was laughing again today, Brad, about the idea of Kurt Cignetti starting a podcast.
Oh yeah, because Matt Rule did it. Yeah, no, it's a funny thought.
The gift that keeps on giving.
We got it from here.
That was very funny. For the first time, I don't know if it's ever, but it feels like ever, and definitely since I've been associated with the school, so 2016, but definitely before that, based on a lot of the reactions I was seeing on Twitter, you can now officially get a replica jersey from the team store, from the website, and that's a good thing. And I'm going to give Adidas props. You know I'm not an Adidas fan, very vocally against Adidas, but that's something people have been asking for a while. The fact that you can now go purchase a replica jersey of this team is a very good thing. So shout out to the school, shout out to the people involved in getting that done. And if you want, go ahead, go check that out. You can get any of the guys. It's
where are the different number options? 13.
I think it's
4.
You can
5.
get all the numbers.
Get all the numbers.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Customize your own nameplate.
See, so you'll know I've made it when I have 1 through 99 in Indiana jerseys.
Over time. Yeah. Why not?
Accumulate. This one kind of flew under the radar a little bit, but I have my eye on the staff moves, and Indiana keeps adding all-stars to the staff. They went out and hired former Georgia player personnel analyst Sales Pinkney as the assistant director of player personnel. Go to a big-time school, you get somebody with rave reviews, bring him into the Indiana ecosystem. I absolutely love it. Shout out to Sales. Welcome aboard. The machine keeps on churning, Brad. You need another talented guy, go get him.
Guy. Yeah. Sure. I'll take him. Yeah. I'll give you a promotion. Yeah. I think you can do your job. I think you can do that job at a high level. Yeah, huge snag from
I was gonna say this probably should have been
staff that's already really good at evaluating. They just had another good evaluator, so it's it's just like you said, the train keeps on chugging along, stacking days, stacking weeks, stacking months, stacking years. But we're taking it week by week now. We're not Well, I guess we're stacking, but we're slowing down.
We're stacking days.
We're slowing down the stacking, I guess.
Speaking of stacking, and I probably should address this at the top of the show, we passed 500 subs. Shout out to you guys. Shout out to us. We set a goal. We hit it. That's beast.
Shout out to
Love
you.
that. Shout out to the listeners. We appreciate you guys. Thank you for being along for this journey. Mm-hmm. Keep subscribing. Just because we set a goal and smashed it doesn't mean we're not setting a new goal. So we'll have to get together and figure it out. But we'll say
it's 1,000.
1,000 by the start of conference play. Were you feeling
1,000 by
the Oregon game?
1,000
maybe the chat can help us out.
1,000 by the national championship game.
1,000 by the national championship? No, it'll have to be before that.
If we, yeah. Yeah.
How about well, this is a good place to loop this into. How about 1,000 before Brad and I descend on Bloomington, October 24th for the October 25th UCLA at Indiana game. My tickets are booked. Brad, our tickets are bought. Our place is booked. My
You're
flight
welcome.
is booked. Yeah, thank you for that, Brad.
I got you.
We are headed to Bloomington. I could not be more excited. I haven't been back to Bloomington since homecoming in 2021. Indiana got absolutely shellacked by Ohio State, and that was a completely different program. I literally don't have words to describe how it feels to say those are booked. And we're coming. I'm officially booked
Yeah,
today.
we'll talk, fat
And
boy. We'll talk.
we will talk. I promise we will talk. Could not be more excited to get out there and just to experience Bloomington as a football school. Like I have chills. Like I'm so excited. I can't wait. Like I can't wait. I might cry if we keep talking about it. Like that's how excited I am.
I haven't been back since Cincinnati game. Micah McFadden ejection. That's the last time I've been back.
Mm-hmm.
I think. Yeah. No, that's probably right.
October 25th. If you're not going to the UCLA game yet, I'll see you there. We are coming.
Six Inside will be descending upon Bloomington. October.
Indiana at the voice of college football will be descending upon Bloomington. And Indiana at the voice of college football has merch
synonymous. Now. But yeah,
we
that's
have
what our
merch
official
now.
name is. But real ones know that we're Six Inside. All right, and we go under the guise of Indiana at Voice of College Football, and we love the Voice of College Football Network. We're so happy to be here, do these cool live shows. Eventually, maybe do some more cool stuff as we continue to grow. But yeah,
this is a good point.
Pumped for the UCLA game.
Yeah,
obviously that's a big one for me. Obviously, the Goon Bowl.
It is the Goon Bowl, and he'll be wearing red because I'll make sure.
I will be wearing red. I wore red to the Rose Bowl last year, and it was very weird, and a lot of people were weirded out by it because I'm very recognizable at the Rose Bowl, and been going there for over 25 years. People have seen me grow up at the Rose Bowl. Right?
Oh my God, is that Brad? Is he wearing red?
Not wearing Bruin blue at the Rose Bowl was a real shock to a lot of people, and had to show out, and we kicked the snot out of them that day. That was fun. Took over the stadium too.
Yeah, we will be there. I could not be more excited. And VOCFB has merch, vocfb.com/shop. Select Indiana. Check us out. Support the channel. My merch will be on the way soon. Super pumped about it. It's cool. It's clean. The logo is super tight. I'm very happy about it. Shout out to Josh who put all that together. And yeah. And then for the show notes, Brad. So real quick, obviously we're going to stay on Tuesday nights. This will be our show preview, and we're going to get into the ODU preview in just a second. The next thing that will come out on the channel is not going to be live. It'll be the clips from this show, and then it'll be about a 10-minute or so recap of the game right after it ends from just me. And that'll be like live from Darlington and the races this weekend. So that's going to be a trip. We'll see how that goes. And then Brad and I are coming back to you live Sunday 11 Eastern.
11 Eastern. I'll set my alarm. I'm gonna make it.
Brad.
It'll be a rough one, but I will be there.
Brad and I will be back live 11 Eastern on Sunday.
My head will hurt, but I will be there for you guys, for my subs. Be there for you, John. Where is John today?
I don't know.
John. This is the first episode he's missed. Can't believe he's missing the ODU preview. This is crazy.
Yo, comment on the Big Ten lock tweet.
Yes. So a fan actually reached out to me and was holding us accountable a little bit. Remember the Big Ten lock thing? We didn't recap what that was, and it was about women's soccer in the Big Ten. And yeah, that's what it was. It wasn't about the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce engagement that happened today. No, it was about women's soccer.
Shout out to the listeners for holding us accountable.
Yeah. No, we love that. No, I appreciate Jonathan or Shlonathan. But
yeah, it was funny.
Soccer kicked off, and if anyone's a big IU alum knows how big soccer is in Bloomington, seeking our 39th straight tournament appearance, which is insane. You put it 39th straight tournament appearance. It's only like a 48, 32 team field, 24 maybe. 39th
Coach
straight. Looking for
Yeagley's
their
got a
20th Big Ten title, looking for their 9th national title, and they look in form as they drew Clemson, a top-ranked team, very recently with a very sick goal at the end and a very cool celly. Looks like they're in form. Enough of soccer. It's football season. But, yeah, IU soccer being in form this early is a very good sign come the College Cup. So we'll see how this team does. Great with the portal. I mean, this team should be nasty every year moving forward. So exciting things. But, yeah, back to football.
Yeah, I'm gonna say hand up on the Big Ten lock tweet. Conspiracy Alex saw a couple of really convincing like who's joining the Big Ten arguments that I really enjoyed, and I went running with it. And then the Taylor Swift thing, I was like, maybe that's it because Taylor Swift, controls the headlines, and so wrong twice. But
it's good to think about
soccer,
Cal and Stanford in the Big Ten. Maybe it's just good to think about them sometimes because I think it works.
Think about those, but they're proud ACC schools. You leave them alone.
Oh, God, so gross. I hate it so much. It's disgusting. Makes me sick.
You know what's not disgusting, Brad? You know what's not disgusting and definitely out of the ordinary and something that deserves to be talked about. Pete Thamel has Indiana in his playoff. Talked about Cignetti as a winner until he sees otherwise. He's not picking against him. It is by far the most logical piece of just anything I've heard out of ESPN in regards to college football in the last 8 to 12 months. So shout out to Pete Thamel for that. It was just a very logical presentation of Indiana as a football program. And I don't know, it felt weird seeing it from an ESPN personality, but it was just a very logically presented case, and I appreciated it. So I wanted to shout out.
Pete Thamel's been doing this job for a long time. He's watched a lot of football very closely at the college level, and getting his endorsement, I'd say, is almost as good as anyone's out there. So, yeah, love the shout. And honestly, it kind of makes me mad because I wanted to go into the season with no one having us in the playoff, but it makes too much sense, right?
He's literally like the only guy.
Like you're just like they bring back 3 All-Americans on defense, and they got, it's still Cignetti. He always wins, always has a top tier quarterback in his conference. Like it just doesn't, it just doesn't. I don't know why it wasn't, assumed that people are throwing in Missouri and Nebraska instead. It's
Missouri's rolling with 2 quarterbacks. You see that report today?
What?
Missouri's Purbulla did not win the job outright. They're rolling with 2 quarterbacks, like half and a half or something like that, or drive. I didn't see the full report.
Fun.
30 teams in the playoffs, though, right? Here we go.
That's another like, yeah. But their schedule's so easy, and Indiana had an easy schedule last year. They're going to be this year's Indiana.
Fat Boy says
that might is that Indiana was a good football team. They're able to win all those games. You have to win you're a mediocre team. You're going to drop one to Oklahoma on the road.
Fat Boy says that might cost Pete his job at the end of the contract.
Anyways,
at least he'll have his dignity, right?
Anyways, it's all going to be taken care of on the field. Anyways, I'm not worried about it. That's why I'm so into getting into ODU. I'm chomping at the bit.
I know, and I'm going to hold you back for 30 more seconds. You know who else watches a lot of football, specifically Indiana football, and who's not an Indiana fan without an incentive to talk about the Hoosiers in any type of positive light, Brad?
There's a lot of people like that.
It's Zach Osterman, one of my favorite journalists out there, somebody with high journalistic integrity. Last year, he said he felt like he was going out on a limb, predicting the Hoosiers to have 8 wins. This year, he's got the team at 10 wins. Again, I'm not going to put self-imposed limitations on this football team. When somebody who watches as much football and as much Indiana football as Zach Osterman predicts the team to have 10 wins, my ears perk up. I'm listening. That's a very, very good sign for this football team.
Yeah, I agree. And he almost has the same exact sentiment I have, where I've said this before on this show. I thought I was being, cheeky, being, 7-8 wins next year going into last year, right? And they exceeded that by 3. So like I'm at like 10 to 11 right now. And like, are they gonna blow my expectations out of the water again and give that, we talk about the year 2 jump too, on top of all that. Like, what does that look like? How much better do these guys get in the system? And here, great minds think alike, right? And we all love Zach over at the Indy Star. So Not surprised they
Big
had
fans.
that take,
Big fans.
Yeah.
Big fans.
Yeah, I saw him at the Northwestern basketball game this year at in Evanston.
Yeah,
Cool
maybe
guy.
we'll see what we can do on that front this season. We'll see. And then we got new towels. The new towels, I don't care what anybody says. I loved them. I thought they looked awesome. I'm a fan of the Bison mascot. I don't care what the mascot looks like or what it. I'm a fan, so I don't really care. I thought it looked dope. Fan of the towels. All right, Brad. Let's get to the main event.
Fan of the towels. You know I didn't want to
Fan
talk
of the
about
towels. No, I know you don't. I know you've been chomping at the bit. Anybody who is a hardcore fan of Six Inside understands what game week previews are to this program, how seriously Brad takes it, and the type of history he delivers for the listeners. And so, Brad, I hand the reins to you.
Keezer usually drives the bus, but here I go. When I get the reins, it's always game preview. Game recaps, he gets it back, but game previews are kind of my thing. And I'm a big college football historian, so I really like to get into, Old Dominion and like what they're all about. Not just like from a football sense, but also just from a, what are they all about? I want to know as much about Old Dominion as possible. I want to be as locked in on this team as I can be. Obviously, I did a full-on scouting report of the team. I know what they look like. But first, I want to just talk about Old Dominion. Located in Norfolk, Virginia. They're a Sun Belt team. They're picked to finish 5th in the East by the media at Media Days this year, and they're picked 3rd in the East by Phil Steele. Phil Steele's on them a little bit more so than the rest of the curve, and I'll tell you why, because I actually think they're going to be a lot better. Just a little quick preview. This is going to be Ricky Raines' 6th year, and this is probably going to be the best team that he's had since he's taken over the job in 2020. And yeah, they're very excited about what they're looking for this upcoming year. And I'm going to go into that in a little bit, but first, about Old Dominion. When I first read this, I was like, why are they called Old Dominion? And I looked it up, and the nickname dates back to the 1600s when King Charles II of England referred to Virginia as his Old Dominion because of the colony, reminding him remained loyal to the English crown during the English Civil War. That's kind of lame, honestly, the fact that Virginia did that. If you want to get to the nitty gritty of it, like screw them. But so they're just they're honing in a tradition, and the fact, I guess they're just they're what do you call the what was the word for the English what was the word for the English like loyalists? The loyalists, right?
Yeah.
I knew it. I knew my history better. Great job, Miss. All my history teachers. Great job in elementary school. Shout out to them. But yeah, some I like going into key alumni as well. There's some good ones, some fun ones. Justin Verlander. We all know Taylor Heineke. He's kind of like the big football name from Old Dominion. But yeah, they have him, Justin Verlander, Kent Bazemore, longtime NBA player, I guess. Yeah, Atlanta Hawk, Golden State Warrior, Laker. Go Lakers, Lake Show. There we go. And then I found a fun one. Ben Bailey, host of the Cash Cab. How about that? That's a fun one. You ever seen Cash Cab?
No, I can't say I have.
You've never seen Cash Cab. It's a show where it's a reality show where there's a guy in a cab, right? And he goes around New York and he picks up random people, and then boom, they're on a game show, and it's Cash Cab. And it's like a trivia game. It's really fun.
Oh wait, no, I've definitely seen that. That guy's from ODU. That's a win.
Yeah,
they're back to even.
Yeah, so I thought it was super cool that they have that. They have the Cash Cab guy.
King Charles thing brings them down one, but then Cash Cow thing brings them back up one.
But he brought his Cash Cab, which is super American and like one of the best things we've come out with. So I guess it evens out. Sort of, I guess.
Kind of. I don't know. Maybe a half point. Maybe they get a half point back.
USA. Okay, so I'm going to go back into kind of before we hop into this year's Old Dominion team. I want to talk about Old Dominion's kind of history as a program. This is their first ever meeting with Indiana, and they started football back in 1930, and they played for about 11 seasons. Then they canceled football. They just canceled it. It was over. 1940. Then it bring it back all the way up until 2009.
Well,
2009. Wow, crazy. And they started at the FCS level, and they basically started winning right away under Bobby Wilder, who was their first ever head coach. I'll call. I guess is second head coach, I guess, technically, but like their first ever head coach, Bobby Wilder. And they started winning right away, 9-2, 8-3. And then in their second or third recruiting class, they brought in this young, scrappy quarterback by the name of Taylor Heineke. And then in his sophomore season, they go all the way. They win their conference, and they go all the way to the Division I quarterfinals, where they eventually lost to Georgia Southern. Absolutely brutal for them. I believe North Dakota State probably won it all that year, but decent run for them at the FCS ranks and helped them make their transition all the way up to the FBS level, which was Taylor Heineke's senior season. He's a big catalyst as to why they are where they are right now. And the success of Bobby Wilder and the success of Taylor Heineke is a big reason why they were able to make that jump to the FBS level. Since then, once they made that jump, they had, they went 6-6, 5-7. Third year, they were able to win the Conference USA outright and win the Bahamas Bowl. But after that, it kind of tanked a little bit, and as it should. But they gave Bobby Wilder, his time to since he was the one that brought them all the way up, unlike some other schools like at Kennesaw State, who we're going to play later this year, and I'll go over that history that week. But, they gave him the opportunity to at least try to build something at that level, and it just didn't work out, and he's always going to be beloved over there, but they had to let him go. They canceled because of that. They basically canceled their 2020 season in COVID. They just used that as an excuse to kind of rebuild after they already hired Ricky Rain, who's a former quarterback at Cornell. This is his first ever head coaching job at the college ranks, and they brought him in. And since then, in 4 seasons, they've gone to 2 bowl games, which in standards of we started football in 2009, pretty decent, honestly. And they have yet to win one under Ricky Rain. But like I said, it brings us to 2025. This is going to be considered his best team that they've had yet. And they kick off the year taking on our Indiana Hoosiers, the 17th. Where are we ranked? 19? Who cares?
Literally, who cares?
Yeah, they're taking on in Memorial Stadium, Bloomington, Indiana. This Saturday on FS1. They're a 24-point dog to our beloved Hoosiers. The over-under set at 54.5. And like I said, this is the first ever meeting. And I can kind of go into this team a little bit. They bring.
Hold on, can I fill in the gap real quick for Coach Rain?
Yeah,
you mentioned he played quarterback at Cornell. That was from 99 to 01. Began his coaching career coaching running backs under which Big Ten defensive coordinator at Cornell?
At Cornell,
Mm-hmm.
Ryan Walt. No, he's too young. I'm trying to think. Would it be Jim Knowles?
It would be Jim Knowles.
Nailed it.
He is technically a disciple of the Jim Knowles coaching tree.
Okay, that's a good place to be.
Moved to coach tight ends under Bill Snyder at Kansas State, and then coached quarterbacks for James Franklin at both Vandy and Penn State. So comes with a nice little pedigree. And I really enjoyed his media day appearance. He talked about staff continuity, which is something I think they lost one guy very similar to Indiana. Talked about roster continuity. They have 4 starters on the offensive line coming back. I'm sure you're about to get into it. The linebackers, 2 really talented players. He is the longest tenured coach in the Sun Belt as well.
Really? That's fascinating. Yeah, good for him. Yeah, just kind of going into Old Dominion and kind of like what their team looks like this year. There's a lot to be excited about. Obviously, they were picked 5th in the media, but Phil Steele's on them in the East and sees them as a dark horse in this conference as general. Like if you're a contender for your division in the Sun Belt, you're a contender for the conference, obviously, right? And they like you said, they bring back 4 out of 5 on the O line. I'm gonna highlight Zachary Barlev, who's gonna be their left tackle. He's a projected all conference guy in that media, during those media days, and has a lot of hype as well in all the other magazines as well. He's kind of the key in that O line, and will have the responsibility of blocking Mikhail Kamara this weekend. So good luck to him. And so wishing him all the best this week as he tries to put some tape on for NFL scouts, and he has a good opportunity to do that. I'm sure he's chomping at the bit. And yeah, and then they're kind of on offense. I'm gonna pause offense. I'm gonna go defense real quick. So they bring back their leading sack leader, Chris Trinidad, on the D line, and they probably have one of the more underrated linebacking groups in the country this year. They have their 3 out of their 4 leading tacklers, all from that linebacking room, all coming back, as well as media day darling, projected second team all conference, Koa Nautala, who's a true sophomore over there. So he's kind of like their Roe Hardy. So they got 4 deep over there. Where lots of talent, including the return
Noah
of
Tala was their leading tackler last year.
Yes, he was. See, I made a mistake because the reason why that was Jason Henderson returns, and this guy was an All-American 2 years ago, and he returns this year. On top of that group, they're looking to be one of the stronger position groups in that conference in general, regardless of what the position is or anything like that. The ODU linebackers are legit, and it's going to be a big challenge for see how our running backs adjust to that. Right, because it's going to be they're going to be able to fill gaps really well. They're gonna be very disciplined. They're not going to make a ton of mistakes. So it's really up to our game plan and how our guys execute blocking. And maybe it's going to take Hemby and Black stepping up, making an extra juke here and there to get some extra yardage here because they're going to show up ready to play. I will say on the defensive side, lost a lot on the defensive backfield. I think this is an opportunity. I think regardless of what the personnel look like, I would want to see a lot from Fernando Mendoza in this game, but looking at kind of what that personnel looks like, I mean, he should be licking his chops at this group. And, there's just a ton of inexperience. I'm not calling him bad or anything. I remember we played FIU last year, and they had actually a very surprisingly really good defensive backfield. A lot of those guys were kind of stepping in there for the first time, but they had a couple guys hit the portal and go to big time programs from that FIU team. Who knows? Maybe Old Dominion's going to end up in the same boat, but I see them as very susceptible to our, passing game and what we bring on the outside, as well as the not just Fernando Mendoza, but also the talent and our ability to get open with those guys going up mano a mano. So we'll see. I think it's a big opportunity for our offense to get going real quick. I'm going to circle back to the offense because this could end up being a challenge for our defense. And I'll explain why. So we brought in Grant Wilson, who was the week 1 starter at Old Dominion last year. He lost the job. He almost beat South Carolina week 1, 23-19. This is the same team that we're playing this week. They gave South Carolina, a team that went 9-3 last year, a real scare, and they pulled that out with a game-winning drive, and like they were down in the fourth quarter. Like it was a real legit scare for the Gamecocks, and they were able to pull that out with Grant Nelson at quarterback. Grant Wilson. Now he ended up losing the job midway through the year to a freshman by the name of Colton Joseph, and being the only guy I actually watched tape on. This is a guy that is legit dual threat. He had 600 yards rushing with 11 tutties, and then 1,600 with 11 tutties through the air with only 5 picks, a very decent, TD interception ratio. This guy can really break out this year and become one of the top quarterbacks in that conference, if not maybe even become a big-time portal guy going into next year. Obviously, because that's kind of how it goes. You kill it in the group of 5, you're still young, got 2 years of eligibility. Like this is a guy where, Wake Forest or Purdue can come knocking, and if they need a quarterback or something like that, Colton Joseph could be that option, but it all comes down to how he kind of progresses going into year 2. Lots of promise with this guy and could pose a lot of problems. You remember Jack Lausch last year, dual threat guy, was able to make some things happen. Colton Joseph could make some things happen for Old Dominion and give our defense a little bit of a test early on, which is honestly a good thing, right? Because I'm not going to sit here and tell you Old Dominion's going to potentially beat us. I don't think that's going to happen, but I think they're going to give us some legit looks. They're very excited about their weapons around Colton Joseph going into this year, as they aren't necessarily returning starters, but they're guys that they feel very confident about, to the sense where they feel like this is their best team yet, and they're shooting for a Sun Belt championship this year.
Yeah, I would agree. You hit every single note that
no way
I had written down. I swear, literally down to like the
that was off the rip.
Down to the linebackers, The only thing you didn't say, and you basically alluded to this with your entire summary of their football team, is that they're going to be ready to play. Like the style of defense they run was giving Carolina fits. That's something Fat Boy's pointing out in the chat. If you go back and look at the score of that game, 23-19, actually, I was with people who were at, or I am friends with people who were at that game, sweating that one out as Carolina season ticket holders, being like, I can't believe Old Dominion's about to ruin our entire weekend. Like they're going to be ready to play football. And so Indiana's going to have to be ready to play football. But I share your sentiment in that if Indiana executes and does the things they need to do in this football game, it shouldn't be close. And that's not to disrespect the Old Dominion football program. I think they're going to have a really good year based on pretty much everything you just said.
Yeah, and they're a really chippy team too. They're really scrappy. They went 5-7 last year. I know not great on paper, but when you look at 7 of those losses, or 6 of those 7 losses were by 1 possession. The only other one being at Virginia by 20, which isn't even, I would even necessarily say, definitely an ass whooping, but not the worst blowout you'll ever see, right? It gives you a lot to be excited about if you're a Monarch fan, where, you know, you swing that 1 possession, 6 of the, like, they could have been a playoff contender last year, you know, if things swing their way, right? If they are able to pull off that South Carolina game, who knows what that season turns out to be. Looks like they just need to turn a corner is really what their biggest thing. They feel like the Nebraska of of the Sun Belt, like just ready to break out. Like, will they? We shall see. And I would argue it's probably easier to break out in the Sun Belt than it is the Big Ten. So good news for Old Dominion.
Very good news for Old Dominion. I have some keys to success, Brad. You ready?
Yeah. The keys to success. Yes.
Yeah.
A little callback from Six Inside.
Yeah. Number 1, dominate the line of scrimmage. Obviously, part of the reason why I wore my Tyson Lawton shirt for this show specifically is because last year a lot of people complained about the opening game. Part of the biggest issue was that a bunch of people left at halftime. People are, oh, they didn't blow out FIU. They ran for 230 something yards. Like, they dominated the line of scrimmage in that game on both sides of the ball. It was very apparent what this football team was going to do to opposing football teams from the jump. They were physical. They were mean. They were nasty. They dominated both sides of the line. I need to see that same thing. I want to see from the jump how aggressive this team is going to be on both sides of the line. And don't let Fernando Mendoza get touched.
Yeah, I know. I need a sack from Mikhail Kamara if he's going to be on track to break the record this year. Need that from him. Expecting, honestly, I would love 2. And yeah, 6 team sacks. I think that'd be a good number to shoot for this group. They do have a very, you know, decent line. They even brought in they brought in this Ryan Joyce guy from Fordham, 46 career starts, old man. They brought him as their center. Like they're a really good group, but like good first game for our D line. And then obviously we're gonna flip sides. I love our O line to kind of pummel them and see what we can do on the offensive side of the ball and really dominate them. But like I'm expecting our defense to attack at the same time, to where I could see us, you know, dominating over time. You know, they might start off a little hot, but I think, you know, we've seen it a lot last year where kind of by the time the 3rd and 4th quarter roll around, Indiana is still going, still just as fast, physical, relentless as they were in the first quarter. And you know, other teams just can't keep up for 60 minutes with us. And I think that's what's going to happen with this, at least in the trenches in this game. I see our O-line kind of dominating right off the bat, really establishing the run just to open it up for Mendoza to really attack those, you know, that very inexperienced DB group that ODU has.
Leads me right into number 2. I got to see Mendoza's ability to execute the offense. Sig has been very tongue-in-cheek about what his skill set truly is. If you go back and watch some of his Cal highlights that have been percolating on the timeline, he's a lot more athletic than people want to give him credit for. Obviously, we know the arm and the arm talent, the strength, the ball placement, all that good stuff. Rourke's superpower, like you said, was to take snap footballs and turn them into touchdowns. Like, how is Mendoza able to grasp this offense, and is he able to execute in a way that makes us go, yeah, this is the guy that could be potentially picked in the top 20 of this year's draft? Or does it reset our expectations for him? I'm not saying one or either way. I'm expecting him to come out and have a really good game, kind of stake his claim to what could be a really exciting Heisman race this season. And I think he's going to be a big part of a very high-powered Indiana offense. I just need to see it. And so that's like his ability to execute when the bullets are flying. What do you got?
Yeah, we could have scrapped everything I even said about this game so far. It really just comes down to, for me, going into this year, is like the one thing I want to see is Fernando Mendoza play football and see where he's at against a decent Old Dominion, because this is going to give us the best idea before Illinois, like what he's going to look like. Obviously, would love to see him throw for a 500 against Indiana State or whatever. That'd be good stat padding for him, but this is going to be the best defense he sees up until that huge Big Ten opener, and kind of seeing how he performs up until then, allowing him to, clean up the rest over the next 2 weeks after that is what's going to set him up for success. And yeah, all I want to see is Fernando Mendoza play football, and then I'm hitting arc afterwards.
Yeah, it'll be busy. I really wish I was able to be in Bloomington this weekend, but a nice consolation for me was I was basically gift wrapped an ability to go to Darlington this weekend for the races. So I'll be watching in a crowd, but very, very excited for this weekend. If you're within arm's length of Bloomington and you can get there for the opener, absolutely go watch this football team play, because Brad's right. This team's going to give them the biggest challenge of the non-con, and this is a really good opportunity to see what these guys look like when they're put under stress. The third key for me, we alluded to the Lewis Moore situation earlier. We'll get a conclusion to this one probably by mid to late day tomorrow. I'm sure Michael Nizolik will be all over giving us updates for this one. Who's going to line up at free safety? Who's going to line up at rover? Obviously, if Indiana had its way, it's going to be Boykin at the rover, Lewis Moore at free safety. I think some of the iterations we've been seeing in practice have been, Baldwin playing the rover spot, Boykin playing the free safety spot would be my best guess as to how they've been covering it, with Lewis Moore potentially not playing. I've been a very vocal Byron Baldwin supporter since the second he decided to commit to Indiana the first time. I'd be really excited to see what this kid's got stepping on the field game one as a starter. Obviously, Kurt Cignetti likes to see his freshmen earn playing time, but go back and look at somebody like D'Angelo Pons, who wasn't playing that first game at JMU, and by week 3, week 4 was a full-blown starter and was a freshman All-American. So that kind of leads me into another key, and that wasn't my next key, but how many freshmen are going to play? Because like you said, this is going to be our tougher non-conference game. This isn't going to be the one where like you empty the bench. And so who are the guys they trust early? Like we saw Mario Landino get playing time last year. Elijah Hardy was somebody who was working his way into the lineup. Jalen Hollywood Bell is a name we've heard mentioned. Obviously, Byron Baldwin Jr., we're talking about a fringe starter. Do some of the guys in the defensive line rotate in? I'm not sure. Do we see some of the younger linebackers? How many of the freshman wide receivers do we see? Do we see Sean Cuono potentially in this game? I'm not sure. So I've got my eye on the rover spot, the free safety spot, and then obviously how many of the freshmen they trust early on.
Yeah, I would like to see which freshmen get meaningful playing time. Hopefully, in an ideal world, we're able to throw all the freshmen in there at some point, all the scholarship guys. Hopefully, we're blowing them out by 15. We're able to kind of just throw everyone in there because everyone gets those 3 free games, so best to use it with the 3 cupcakes. And because it's very unlikely that the true freshmen are going to play in conference play, so might as well get their first taste of college ball now as opposed to next year. So hopefully that's the case in this game. I think it could be very likely that that's the case. And some more roster iterations, like, do we know the status of Bray? Obviously, I mentioned, like, regardless, I think the O-line's going to have their way, right? But, like, is Bray Lynch healthy? Is he going to be starting at that right guard, or are they going to go Mikowski at right guard, Benson at right tackle? Is that going to be flipped? We're only really going off clips we see in practice, which I imagine, they're probably playing Mikowski and Benson in both spots on the right side with Bray Lynch being out. So just trying to figure out what the best combination is there. Really curious to see kind of what the O-line looks going into it. Obviously, with Bray Lynch back, one of those guys will be left hanging in terms of who's getting that right tackle spot, which will be curious to see as the season goes on. But yeah, do we know the Bray Lynch status?
Well, that brought me to my next key is who starts across the offensive line. I think if you asked me before the fall camp started, not knowing the full status of Drew Evans, obviously in that moment, not knowing what the injury to Bray Lynch was, or even if I don't even believe he was injured at that point. But at this point, you asked me what the offensive line is going to look like, and I believe the biggest question mark is still right tackle. And I thought Mikowski had the lead in heading into the fall. The clips make it seem like maybe Benson might be gaining there, and that's why Mikowski maybe kicked into to guard. I'm not entirely sure. It is nice to have Bray Lynch back. He did have a boot on in that home field apparel like launching of their storefront, which I thought was interesting. They threw him out there with the boot. But yeah, is it Lynch at right guard, Benson at right tackle, which is kind of what my like head or gut is telling me based on the clips we were seeing. Are they going to kick Mikowski back out there? I didn't, from a confidence perspective and from we need to be humming immediately type of standpoint, I didn't love the fact that he still felt a little bit uncomfortable on the right side of the offensive line. I think that's almost why I lean Benson, just because he's more comfortable at right tackle, having somebody with left tackle experience who can come in and play right tackle, potentially play guard as that fifth offensive lineman. And then you have somebody like or sixth offensive lineman, sorry. And then you have Ademola Ajani, who I thought was in pretty good position to potentially play a guard spot. Looks like he's probably the third or fourth or second or third
ready. I've
option.
seen enough pictures of Ajani to know
He's ready, but
to go.
it looks
he is
like tackle
10.
is the spot up for grabs. It doesn't look like guard's the spot up for grabs, and so it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Yeah,
I'm definitely looking forward to
I
that.
think Johnny's that first guard off the bench. Maybe they plug in a Mikowski / Benson, whoever's not playing tackle at that point. On my list, I still had Mikowski because he was leading going after spring. That could change. You know, I still have the double arrows next to him. So yeah, I think that's one of the bigger question marks going into is only that was the one real true position battle going into camp. So just kind of seeing how that all worked out, which, you know, the consensus is no matter what it is, I think we're all cool with it and we're all excited regardless. I don't think we have any, red flags. Benson didn't have the best year at right guard, which is probably why he's getting a lot of right tackle looks. That probably just suits him better. He plays like a Jeremy Parnell. I think I've told you this off screen one time. If you guys don't remember, Jeremy Parnell was that right tackle on that really good Cowboys O-line that when Zeke Elliott kind of came on the scene and ended up getting a big contract with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And yeah, they play very similar just in the sense that they're very like run stuffers and they're very good in the run game, but maybe, not elite at pass blocking, but we'll see what his development looks like under Bostad. And yeah, I'm excited to see how that pans out.
And the last thing I'm kind of looking at, Brad, I need to see the defensive line rotation. Is Kamara the full-time stud? Do we see a little bit of Indiana? I don't want to say mimicking the 3-3 front that ODU is going to throw at them, but where Kamara is maybe the down defensive end, the position he played last year, and you have Wyatt as the stand-up, almost like flex linebacker in that role where they're a little bit bigger across the front. I'm intrigued because they have a lot more versatility on defense with or without Lewis Moore, especially in the back end, but even on the defensive line with the depth they have. And so does somebody like Daniel Ndukwe push for snaps? Does somebody like a DePepe brother push for snaps? Is one of those freshmen that maybe we're not talking about enough, pushing the front end of the rotation? How good are Tucker and Wheeler and Ratcliffe and the guys in the interior? What does Kamara look like transitioning to full-time, or if he's going full-time to stud, what does he look like standing up versus having his hand in the ground? Like, and are we going to keep these guys fresh, or is it going to be the best guys play the majority of the snaps? I don't think there's a right or wrong way to do it. I have full trust and faith in this staff. They have a lot of options, and it's going to be really cool to see how they plug and play these guys, especially early. And it'll be interesting to see based on game flow, how they end up rotating guys in and out and who they end up trusting in critical downs.
Yeah, I'm excited to see as obviously on the field kind of what it looks like, and then also kind of getting the official numbers after the first game, kind of seeing what that snap count looks like. So that's probably going to be this game as opposed to the other games, probably going to be the most accurate of it, at least in terms of what we could expect going into Illinois. So yeah, just getting those numbers, excited to kind of see it on film. And man, I'm just pumped to just finally get some football. on it with our Hoosiers. We've been doing this show for so long now, and I'm just ready to roll.
I could not have said it better myself. And it's part of the reason why I just like don't have the energy to talk about the grifting or any of that. Like none of this matters now. Like none of it matters. Pads are going to hit pads. Indiana's going to snap the football. They're going to say hike and it's going to go live. And we're just going to get to see these guys execute against another jersey. And it's going to be real. And it's exciting because we understand what we're looking at here in Bloomington. And a lot of people are building their opinions based off the perceived brand of Indiana football. And they're making the mistake of not understanding who Kurt Cignetti is and what this staff is as a football program. And a lot of people are going to look really stupid, and I'm very, very excited for that. Brad, I'm not going to let us off the hook without giving a score prediction.
Always score prediction. 52-17 Hoosiers.
I hate when we do this because I like to be in the 50s too. I think they're going to make a statement. I don't even think they score 2 touchdowns. I would be a little bit shocked.
Yeah, I know. I always disrespect Haynes in my score predictions. Then I always have to apologize in the game recap. Like, oh, I wanted 3 picks. They got me 3 picks, and then it's like they don't get enough. Like I think I was like going to Michigan State. I was like, they don't get enough picks, and then Amari Farrell gets 2 of them. I'm just like, all right. Like,
I think Indiana's going to make a statement. I really think it's going to be, it might get ugly. And I think it's going to be like 50-6. I don't even want to say 7. I think 50-6.
50-6?
Yeah.
50. How do you get to 50? How many touchdowns?
I have no idea.
7 touchdowns, but Sig went for 2 on one of them.
Maybe they go for 2 early. I have no idea. I think
they're gonna get a touchdown. I think this Colton Joseph kid's gonna at least get 1 drive down there, if not 2. Because I'm kind of going off how they played South Carolina last year, and obviously I think we're a lot better than South Carolina was last year. But in the sense that I think we're gonna score a lot more than 23 points against Old Dominion. So
it's hard for me to look at Old Dominion and say they're better than a team like Maryland, right? Or they're better than a team like Northwestern, or they're better than a team like Michigan State. And I know you can't do football math like that, but I look at the athletes that are on this Indiana defense and the chip they're going to play with and the speed they're going to play with and the speed they added. I think if they gave up 2 touchdowns in this game, they'd be like, if you got a very candid Bryant Haynes, he would be upset. Like very upset.
Yeah, I feel really bad for Indiana State the following week.
Yeah. And this isn't an indictment of ODU, and I think ODU is actually gonna have a solid year and be a good program, but I think this Indiana team is something different, and I can't look at the talent they're bringing back on every level of the entire team. Fat Boy says 35-17 backups will play.
More points. More
points.
Mendoza.
Until proven otherwise, I'm going to be as cocky and brash as I possibly can. And I think this team is going to be really, really, really good. Is 50-6 aggressive? Probably.
Probably. Yeah. 52-17, I feel like is respectful to all
That's aggressive too. You went in the 50s. I went in the 50s. I felt like we had to go there. All right. You want to talk about a couple of the other games on the slate this week, Brad, before we get out of here? Or do you have a closing thought on Indiana ODU?
No, I just really want to see Fernando Mendoza. I think that's like the biggest thing of anything we've talked about. I would like to see a couple picks, just like, turnovers. I want to see us, get a hot start in terms of taking the ball away. I think that's something that's really important. Something that we did really well last year was the turnover margin. I think that's a big reason why people are projecting a fall off because, it's hard to carry that over year. So to see us get ahead of it and, and show that ability to turn the ball, to turn people over, I think will be a good sign. And obviously want to see obviously the offense as a whole, but mostly kind of that pass game with Mendoza. I'm very confident we'll be able to run the ball very well this year. Really just want to see just how good Mendoza is because, like I've been saying all offseason, he is the catalyst to how many wins we get. I think we're going to get to 8, right? Like how much further than 8 do we get? And that really comes down to how good Fernando Mendoza is. So we'll see. We'll see. That's what I'm most looking forward to, and as well as probably everyone watching this show.
Yeah, I full blown agree. And I think if you look at a lot of the goals of the people on this team, a lot of the individual accolades these guys want, like it's going to take a lot of big games, and it's going to take a lot of big games early. Like Elijah Surratt wants 1,000 receiving yards. Like he's going to have to go for 100 yards in this game, at least 100, 150, like have a big game. Like if Fernando Mendoza wants to push for the Heisman and be in contention for maybe the #1 quarterback taken next year's draft, he's going to have a big game. Like he's going to have to put up video game-esque numbers and dominate this level of competition. If he's going to be that type of guy, I like Indiana to score a lot of points. And I think they need to make a statement early, and they need to prove that teams like this maybe aren't on their level. And it quells a lot of the maybe South Carolina should have made it last year. And I know you can't do like apples to apples or whatever. You can't compare football games like that, but it would be a nice little statement for Indiana to make to put a little distance between the perceived how good they are versus where people perceive South Carolina to be. So
100%. Yeah, I think that's a great point.
I'm so excited to watch this team play football. I cannot.
Yeah, I'm done talking about it. I want to talk about actual games. And
I'm so tired of talking about hypotheticals.
And no more 2-hour shows of previews. I know this one's gonna be a little short. We're doing 2 shows a week now, so they're gonna be a little. They're not very rarely they're past 90 minutes. I don't think we have any more to talk about today, but
we got a little bit of quick hit the slate real quick, I think, and then we can get out of here.
Yeah. We usually do that, going into week 1. A viewer's guide after Indiana Old Dominion. Where should we be putting our attention to? Where should we be paying attention to across? I was pointing out a bunch of, national games for Keyser to kind of write down. I don't know how many we're going to go through, how much we're going to talk about them, but yeah, let's kind of run through it.
No, it'll be very quick. Like one sentence on Boise State at USF on Thursday night.
Playoff implications.
I agree. 2 sentences on Texas at Ohio State.
Arch Manning is good, but he's going to be on the road. Very, very tough debut to find yourself in. But yeah, we still got to kind of see how good Ohio State is after losing all those guys. So interesting game. I think, I don't know. I'll be rooting for the Ohio State just for the Big Ten SEC narrative, but that's going to be a tough one for the Buckeyes. There's a lot of hype around Texas.
Yeah, Texas is deep. Texas is loaded, but they're in similar situations at quarterback. Both teams are going to be loaded at skill. Ohio State has the home field advantage, but it feels like Ohio State's head is not in the right place. And I don't know what they're doing with this whole banning them, still thinking about Michigan when Texas is on their doorstep. So hopefully that's not translating to the team for their sake. But obviously this is game of the weekend on paper. Definitely be paying attention it's before the Indiana. Indiana plays at 3:30, right?
Indiana plays at 1:30 Central Time, 2:30 Eastern Time.
It's such a weird time.
And 11 a.m. Central Time for the big noon kickoff. So yeah, obviously East Coasters know what time that is.
Big noon. Auburn Baylor is an interesting game for the SEC's sake. That Baylor team is sneaky good. They're going to have the quarterback advantage in that matchup as well.
And if you talk to any Auburn fan this offseason, they're really excited what they got going on. Not to say that that's not every year for them, but,
I don't know. Twitter was seeming like after they claimed 9 national titles or whatever it was, that maybe that was a PR ploy to cover whatever is coming next.
Oh, man. That would be disastrous for them. That one's on Friday night in Waco. So going to be tough. Going to see some good uniform. Auburn, one of my favorite probably my favorite away uniform in the sport. Love the orange and blue stripes and the piping on the white, all whites. And then, hopefully Baylor comes out with some gold helmets and all green. Maybe that'd be a cool color matchup. So a matchup you don't see too often.
Definitely not. Syracuse versus Tennessee is a really interesting one.
Are we skipping? I feel like we're
No.
skipping Nebraska Cincy. Little Sorsby.
Oh, I didn't write it
Raiola.
down. I didn't
Little
write it down.
Sorsby versus Raiola. I think that's just a fun one to tune into late Thursday.
It is a fun one. It's a fun one.
That is upset alert for Nebraska, by the way. Sorsby's a very good quarterback. As we know, seeing him as a young freshman, he had a great season last year. They're looking to bounce back and maybe make some noise in the Big 12.
That game is at Arrowhead.
Fun. That would be something, man.
That would be something.
So it's Kelsey's alma mater taking on Mahomes' little brother. That's fun. That's fun.
Did you see his quote?
In Arrowhead.
I don't want to be a hater, and I'm not a hater, but it was a very ironic quote that he was like, "God made me look like."
Dude,
Patrick
that was so cringe. I was like, dude.
No, it's got to be a bit. It has to be a bit.
You got to.
It's got to be a bit.
You got to be your own thing. He's too talented to be doing this too. That's the thing with him. It's like you're literally that guy, and you're trying to like latch on to someone else. Like you could be your own
enough
guy.
to stand on his own 2 feet.
It makes me worry about Dylan Raiola, that type of stuff.
Nothing will beat the Edward Catone cutting in the fucking whatever that TikTok was of like Dylan Raiola is gonna shred the Hoosiers this weekend.
Oh God, that was so funny. Watching that after the fact was so good.
God, I'm so excited for Edward Catone edits to hit the timeline again. Oh my God. Yeah. Syracuse versus Tennessee. Intriguing matchup for where Syracuse is as a football program versus where Tennessee is as a football program. A lot of really interesting matchups for the SEC early on. And, props to the SEC for the scheduling a lot of these games. Syracuse is not a cupcake game for a team like Tennessee, especially with the quarterback issues they had this offseason.
Yeah, but Tennessee's defense looks to continue their dominance as, they've been really solid over the last few years. That is supposed to propel them to a very strong season, but it really comes down to how good Joey Aguilar is in that offense. Josh Heupel's an offensive guy, so I'm sure they got some things figured out. And then Syracuse debut of Angeli over there from the Notre Dame transfer. Likely a downgrade from McCord, but I guess we'll just have to see just how much.
Alabama at Florida State.
Upset
Castellanos Bowl.
Upset alert.
You think they back up Castellanos' talk?
It's on the road. Got the war chants going. Did you watch that Ty Simpson game when they played South Florida? And it was like they were down like 10-3 at halftime, and they had to bench him and throw in Tyler Buckner. Like that's
Ty Simpson?
That's the same Ty Simpson. Just 2 years later. That's all I'm going to say. Same guy. Years. Same guy. Florida State coming off that 2-10 year where, they were a lot more talented than 2-10 with obvious quarterback problems, right? And you lose that Dublin game, kind of just lose the season. You had a lot big expectations coming off the undefeated year where they should have been in the playoff and didn't get in, and then they have that Dublin disappointment, and they kind of just lost the season, lost all motivation, like really just kind of snowballed on them. So for them to kind of retool and bring in a bunch of really good talent, they have Deuce Robinson, Squirrel White's there. They filled in a bunch of holes on defense, and they brought in Castellanos, who's a guy who can kind of just make things happen and is the type of guy who when your team isn't as good, but he's your quarterback, you can still win because he's just that type of player, and he's really electric and fun to watch. So excited for that game in Tallahassee. I can't stress that how is that not an upset alert, right? It's going to be an electric environment. And yeah, obviously lots of pressure on Kalen DeBoer too. And it falls on a guy like Ty Simpson, who had a lot of high school accolades, but really hasn't shown us really anything, to be honest. Like Arch Manning's shown us more than Ty Simpson, and Arch Manning's been in school a lot less. So we'll see. We'll see with Alabama. Obviously, Kalen DeBoer is great with quarterbacks, and I'm just saying way too many sentences about this game. We're supposed to speed run this, but yeah.
You just want to hit an hour and a half. I respect it, Brett.
Yeah, it's true.
LSU at Clemson. People like LSU a lot. Clemson, obviously clear national title contender. This is a massive game. I don't think losing this game negatively affects either team, but it does give you a good idea of where both these specific teams stand when it comes to the playoff chase, which the public expects both these teams to be in.
Yeah, I remember going through my potential top 12, both these teams being in it. I said Clemson has a chance to go undefeated, but I also said for LSU, this is the year for them, the Brian Kelly year, like very similar to this ODU team. Like this is the best team Brian Kelly has probably had since he's been there, and on paper. So for them to come out, great opportunity for them to come out and make a statement and kind of establish themselves as a potential playoff contender. Win or lose, they'll still be in that discussion, but they can really get in the driver's seat with the dub over Clemson week 1.
And then the final game, Notre Dame at Miami. Like Notre Dame should be really good. CJ Carr has a lot of fans. They're going to have a really good run game. They're going to have a really good defense. They're going to be well coached.
I can't take Miami seriously, but I can't just help remember the Ian Book team that got their ass beat in the Hard Rock.
That's what I'm saying. I can't take a team seriously whose head coach isn't going to be on the sideline. He's going to be in the booth.
Cristobal?
Yeah.
Really? Why?
He's the first coach to choose. I think Charlie Weiss coached from the booth after getting surgery one time.
I mean,
but
Paterno had to do that for a little bit toward the end there because he was always sick. And Jerry Kill, the guy who had all the seizures at Minnesota and New Mexico State, he had to do that at times as well. Yeah, no, usually it's for a medical reason. So for him to electively choose that with no real reason is interesting. And yeah, I'm curious to see how that works.
Yeah, I definitely have my eye on this game from an intrigue perspective, but I have no idea who's going to win this one.
I'm very confident in Notre Dame's ability to win, but you never know. It's week 1, and we actually don't really know anything. We're all going off hypotheticals, so yeah.
I agree. That's what I got, Brad. Voice of College Football has merch. Check out the Indiana page, vocfb.com/shop. Click Indiana as the team. You can check that out. My merch will be in hopefully by next week. We'll have to get that ordered. I'll be writing stuff for vocfb.com. Be on the lookout for that. You can follow the Voice of College Football at the Voice of College at the VOCFB. You can follow Indiana at Indiana VOCFB. Please like, comment, share, subscribe to Indiana at the Voice of College Football on YouTube. We broke our 500 subscriber goal. Shout out to you guys. Thank you so much for that. We're chasing another one, maybe 1,000 subscribers by the UCLA game. I don't know. We'll see. But Brad and I will be out there for that. Very pumped for that. But ODU opening this weekend, Indiana Hoosier football. I'll be back with a recap video on Saturday after the game. Brad and I will be live Sunday, 11 Eastern. Appreciate you guys hanging out. The next time we speak, Indiana will have played a football game, and that is a beautiful sentence. Appreciate you guys hanging out. Go Hoosiers.